If I ask you to close your eyes right now and, picture Ladakh, where does your mind go? I'm guessing it's probably not a political protest.
No, definitely not.
You're probably seeing that classic desktop wallpaper stuff, the Royal Enfield cruising down an empty highway, those insane crystal blue lakes like Pangong Zones, maybe a monk meditating.
The ultimate image of serenity. It's the high-altitude, cold desert.
Exactly. It's where you go to unplug from the world.
That is the brand, right? The land of high passes. It's sold as this spiritual, quiet escape. But if we look at the stack of articles and reports we have in front of us today, I mean, specifically looking at the situation right now in January 2026, that serenity is completely misleading.
It's a mask.
It really is. Because underneath that postcard image, the region is, well, it's boiling. We aren't seeing meditation. We are seeing a region in a state of intense political anxiety. There's frustration, there's fear.
And a very loud, unified demand coming from the people who actually live there.
A very loud demand, yeah.
And it's a demand that centers around a phrase that, I have to be honest, sounds incredibly boring. If you saw it in the headline, you'd probably just skip right past it.
The sixth schedule.
Right. The sixth schedule. Sounds like a tax form or something. But our mission for this deep dive is to uncover why this dry legal term is currently the single most important thing in the lives of the Ladakhi people.
And why 97% of the locals think this is the only way they can survive.
Yeah, and we have to talk about the clock ticking, too, because this isn't abstract.
Not at all. There are critical talks with the central government happening in February 2026. I mean, just a few weeks from now. The stakes are massive.
Okay, so let's dive in. To understand the anger in 2026, the sources suggest we have to go back to the original sin, so to speak, or at least the major turning point.
August 5th, 2019, that's the date. That's when everything changed.
That was the abrogation of Article 370 and Article 35A. Now, we don't need to relitigate the entire national debate on that.
No, but we do need to understand what it meant specifically for a person living in Leh or Kargil. We have to zoom in.
Okay, so what was the local perspective?
Before 2019, under Article 35A, the residents of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh was part of that, had these really formidable legal shields. The big one was land.
Right. If you weren't a permanent resident, you literally could not buy land there.
You couldn't. So if you're a billionaire hotelier from Mumbai and you want to build a massive resort in Ladakh,
before 2019, you were out of luck.
Completely. The land was locked down for the locals. It was a protectionist measure. But then 2019 happens, the state is carved up, and Ladakh becomes a union territory, or a UT.
And initially, the sources say there was actually some cheering in Ladakh about this.
There was, especially in the Leh district. For decades, they felt ignored by the state government in Srinagar. They felt the budget and attention always went to the Kashmir Valley.
So they thought, great, if we're a UT, we'll be directly connected to New Delhi, we'll get more development, more attention.
It was a hope for a new beginning.
But this feels like the classic be careful what you wish for scenario. That honeymoon phase didn't last very long.
It ended very, very quickly. Because they got UT status, but they got it without a legislature.
Help us unpack that distinction, because that is absolutely crucial. What does without a legislature actually look like on a Tuesday morning for a local?
It means the democratic chain of command is broken. In a state or even a UT with a legislature like Delhi, you vote for an MLA. That MLA goes to an assembly and makes laws.
And if you don't like the laws, you can vote them out. There's accountability. There's a feedback loop.
Exactly. But in a UT without a legislature, that loop is gone. There is no assembly. The region is run by a lieutenant governor, an LG, who is appointed by the central government.
So you have a situation where the person in charge, the person signing off on where to build a road or how to manage water, might be a bureaucrat who was in a Chennai office 2 weeks ago.
And who might be transferred out in 2 years. It creates this loss of voice. The sources all highlight this intense feeling of powerlessness. You're seeing decisions made about your backyard by people who don't know your customs or suffer the consequences.
It's what political scientists call a democratic deficit.
That's the term. And in Ladakh, this is compounded by the demographic reality. We have to look at the numbers. They're just staggering.
The 97% figure?
Right. Over 97% of the population in Ladakh belongs to scheduled tribes. This isn't a cosmopolitan mix like Mumbai. It's an overwhelmingly tribal population with very specific culture.
And this is where the sixth schedule finally enters the chat. Because the locals are arguing, hey, the Constitution already has a fix for this exact problem.
They aren't asking to invent a new law. They are pointing directly to the Constitution, to Article 2442, and saying, look, this was designed specifically for us.
So what is it? I've seen it described as a constitution within a constitution. Yeah, it sounds pretty heavy.
Well, it's a very powerful tool. It was originally created for the Northeast, for places like Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram. The founders of the country recognized that some tribal areas just operate differently.
Different social hierarchies, different justice systems.
Communal land ownership, all of it.
Yeah.
If you apply the standard Indian legal code, you might just accidentally destroy their entire way of life.
So the sixth schedule acts as a kind of a blast shield.
A shield and a sword. It allows for the creation of autonomous district councils, or ADCs, and don't let the boring name fool you.
These aren't just advisory committees?
Not at all. These aren't places where you sit around, drink tea, and make suggestions the governor ignores. These ADCs are elected bodies. They have teeth.
What kind of teeth?
Sharp ones. They have legislative power. They can actually make laws on land use, forest management, agriculture, village administration, even inheritance.
Wow. Okay, so they can theoretically look at a proposal from the center and say, no, that violates our local land laws.
Yes. They also have financial independence. They can levy certain taxes and get direct funds for development. They can even run their own courts for customary law.
It's essentially a mini parliament for the region. It brings power back to the local level.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, so I get the mechanism. But let's connect this to the anxiety. Why are they demanding this so urgently now? The sources list three big fears: land, jobs, and culture. Let's start with land.
Land is the primal fear. Now that Article 35A is gone, that legal barrier preventing outsiders from buying land is just gone.
And Ladakh is prime real estate. I mean, not just for tourism. I was reading about the solar energy potential. It's massive.
Huge potential. And mining. The fear is that large corporations with deep pockets will come in, buy up massive tracts of land for solar parks or luxury resorts, and the locals will essentially be pushed out. They call it alienation.
It's like gentrification on steroids.
Yeah.
You wake up one day and you can't afford to live in your own village because a hotel chain bought the whole valley.
Exactly. And without the sixth schedule, there's no legal mechanism to stop it. If an ADC existed, they could pass a law saying no land transfer to non-residents. Boom. Problem solved.
It restores that local veto power.
It does.
Okay, fear number 2, jobs. This is something everyone worries about, but why is it so acute in Ladakh?
It's about scale. It's a small economy with a small population. The government is by far the biggest employer. So the fear is that if you open everything up, you'll have people coming from all over India to compete for those very limited jobs.
And let's be real, a kid growing up in a remote village in Zanskar, where the school might be snowed in for months, probably hasn't had the same educational resources as a kid from Delhi.
Right, so if it's a totally open competition, the local kid is at a huge disadvantage.
They feel they'll be outcompeted in their own home.
That's the worry. And the sixth schedule offers a solution here, too. It allows the local administration to reserve jobs specifically for the local tribal population. It's a form of affirmative action.
Right, to ensure the local economy actually benefits the locals. And the third pillar is culture. This one feels a bit more abstract, but the sources say it's actually the most emotional driver.
It is. Ladakh isn't just a place, it's a distinct civilization. You have Tibetan Buddhist roots, distinct Muslim communities in Kargil. It's unique. The fear is demographic dilution.
Being outnumbered in your own homeland.
Exactly. If 50,000 people move there for work or retirement, suddenly the tribal population could become a minority. We've seen this happen in other parts of the world. The sixth schedule gives the ADCs power over social customs. They can legislate to protect their language, their marriage customs, their heritage.
I want to pivot to something that underpins all of this, which is the environment. We threw around that term high-altitude cold desert. It sounds tough, like it can take a beating.
But the ecologists in our source material are screaming the opposite. Fragile is the word they use over and over.
Deceptively fragile.
Very. Because it's a desert, things don't grow back quickly. Water is incredibly scarce. It all comes from glacial melt. The entire ecosystem is on a knife edge.
And this is where the development narrative crashes into reality. The central government wants to develop Ladakh. They see carbon-neutral opportunities, solar power, tourism revenue.
But the locals see unregulated mass tourism. They see thousands of plastic water bottles clogging the streams. They see industrial projects using up the little groundwater they have.
I read one quote that was really striking. A local leader saying, we cannot eat roads.
That just sums it up perfectly. The fear is that if decisions are made by bureaucrats in Delhi looking at GDP targets, they will greenlight projects that destroy the local ecosystem. They
Mhm.
might not understand that you can't just drill a well there like you can in the plains of Punjab.
So the sixth schedule acts as a kind of environmental veto.
In a way, yes. Because the ADCs control land and forests, they can determine the kind of development that happens. They can say, we want sustainable, high-value tourism, not mass bus tours.
Or we want solar, but not on this specific grazing land. It puts the ecological brakes in local hands.
In the hands of the people who actually have to live with the consequences.
Which brings us to today, January 2026. This isn't just people grumbling. This has moved to the streets.
The sources describe significant unrest in late 2025. Protests, hunger strikes, shutdowns. The patience has really run out. But the most interesting political development, and this is key, is the alliance.
The Lee Apex Body and the Cargill Democratic Alliance.
Right. Now, for anyone who doesn't know the region, Leh and Cargill have been like oil and water historically. Leh is predominantly Buddhist. Cargill is predominantly Muslim. They've voted differently. They've had different aspirations.
A deep rivalry.
A very deep one. But this issue, this fear of losing their identity and their land has done the impossible. It has united them. They've formed a joint front.
That has to be terrifying for political strategists in New Delhi. It's one thing to manage two squabbling districts. It's another to face a united wall of 97% of the population.
It changes the calculus completely. You can't play divide and rule when the divide has been bridged. This unity is what has forced the central government to the table.
And that leads us to February 2026. These high-level talks are scheduled. But here's what I don't get. If the sixth schedule is in the Constitution, and Ladakh seems to fit the criteria perfectly, why hasn't the government just said yes? What's the hesitation?
That is the million-dollar question. And it's not just stubbornness. There are real strategic concerns from the government's perspective. The sources suggest they're worried about the precedent.
It's a domino effect.
Exactly. If you grant this level of autonomy to Ladakh, what about other regions in India that are demanding similar rights? Gorkha land, maybe some tribal areas in other states. It could create a slippery slope that the center wants to avoid.
And I imagine security has to play a role. It's a sensitive border area.
A massive role. I mean, look at the map. Ladakh borders both China and Pakistan. It's arguably the most sensitive strategic region in the country. The military presence is huge.
So the government might be wary of creating an autonomous local body that could, theoretically, interfere with security infrastructure.
Or land acquisition for the military, for example. The center wants, and probably needs, a tight grip because of the borders.
And the locals want a loose grip because of their culture and land.
That's the tension. It's a tug of war between national security and integration on one side and local democracy and survival on the other.
And that February meeting is where the rope snaps or holds? The locals have made it clear they aren't settling for half measures?
No. They've seen other offers like protection under different articles of the Constitution, but they view that as weak tea. They want the full armor of the sixth schedule. Nothing less.
It really feels like a watershed moment, not just for Ladakh, but for how we think about democracy in diverse countries.
It forces us to ask, what does development even mean? Is it just new highways and solar farms? Or is it the ability of a community to decide its own future?
And can a modern nation-state accommodate these pockets of intense difference? Can you be fully Indian while operating under a different set of local rules because your land and your culture are different?
The Ladakhis are arguing that the only way to be fully Indian is to have those protections, that true integration isn't about forcing uniformity. If you do that, you end up alienating the very people who are the guardians of that border.
So they aren't asking to leave the house. They're just asking for a lock on their bedroom door.
That's a fantastic analogy. They want to be part of the family, but they need their own space to be safe. And given the ecological fragility, maybe they're the only ones who really know how to keep that room clean.
Well, we will be watching those February talks very, very closely. It's a story of ice mountains, heated politics, and the future of indigenous rights.
It's definitely one to watch. The outcome will set a precedent for decades.
So, as you go about your week, here is something to chew on. If a region is 97% tribal and ecologically unique, does a one-size-fits-all governance model actually work? Or is specific autonomy, like the sixth schedule, the only way to ensure true democracy? And if the government grants it here, what does that mean for the rest of the diverse tapestry that is India?
Question worth pondering.
That's it for this deep dive into the sixth schedule and the battle for Ladakh. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious.